13 years ago, I said that I would absolutely never get into studying banking. I uh, I swore to it that I would not. That my trials and tribulations had led me down a path to study sound doctrines, principles, maxims of law, and that I had no need nor any desire to gain any knowledge in the banking industry. It's about 3 or 4 years ago, I realized that that was very detrimental to my growth because everything, and I mean fucking everything, ladies and gentlemen, is a commerce game, is a banking game. And it's about knowing how to negotiate your instruments, knowing who you are, how to keep account, be liable, and be responsible. All right. And as I delve deeper and deeper into studying equity and trust law and ecclesiastical law and law of merchant, and I didn't realize that everything was gearing me up to this point to start studying banking. It wasn't until I did some time in prison and read the Bible that I realized that the Bible mentions gold over 800 times in the King James Version of the Bible. And I started to realize how important it was. Throughout the years studying history, I learned very quickly that alchemists for centuries have tried to replicate and duplicate AU on the periodic element table or element chart. And nobody has, to this day that we know of, ever been able to replicate gold found in nature. And as I realized that the King James 1611 Bible was more than just some crazy cracker stories that seem impossible, but being able to read between the lines, I started to see that there was meaning had uh, hidden within the depths of that book. Not only is that book an original banking manual, it's an original book on trust, and it has all the laws for man written in it. Most of the UCC is uh, entrenched with maxims from the Bible. They just manipulate it and twist it just enough so it's almost unrecognizable. So when people say, well, Derek, you can't commingle, you can't use UCC in harmony with natural law and constitutional law and treaty law, and I'm here to tell you that I know for a fact that's not correct. Okay? Because the UCC, if it is not in harmony with the common law, then it is wholly and utterly void. All right? And the federal law supersedes and trumps state law when it comes to banking, ladies and gentlemen. So every state by the 80s had adopted the Uniform Commercial Code, okay, as kind of their guidelines for administering uh, commerce, contracts. And people say, well, there's a difference between trust and contracts. No, there's not. Trust and contracts are one of the two, the same thing. And what I mean by that is a contract is simply put together to create the boundaries or parameter of performance for which each man or woman or corporation is to perform in order to make the other whole by fulfilling their obligation. All right. And the reason that you're entering into those contracts is because you've either never done business with them or you don't trust them. And thus there's a need for a contract, which creates a trust relationship. Okay. So the people that are out there telling you that contract law and trust law are completely opposite, they're different, they're not. I'm here to tell you with an abundance of research underneath my belt and plenty of firsthand experience and knowledge that they're one and the same. Okay. So federal law supersedes the UCC in the aspect that we, the American people, and furthermore, the people of the world, are in fact the creditors of the entire banking system, with the exception of, I think, China, Russia, Libya at one point. There were like 8 or 9 nations that the United States invaded because they weren't part of the same banking cartel. Okay, they did things just a little different, and that threatened the petrodollar. See, the Federal Reserve note would have never lasted this long had it not been backed by what is known as the petrodollar, which was done in 1971 under Richard Nixon. When he finally abolished the gold standard, put the final nail in the coffin, I shall say, he struck a deal with the Saudi Arabian princes over there, and the kings, I shall say, and said, tell you what, if you sell every drop of oil utilizing Federal Reserve notes, we will consider you an ally, we will supply you with weapons, and we will teach you how to use them. And that was the deal that was made with Saudi Arabia. And from that point forward, until recently, every drop of oil sold throughout the world was sold or purchased via the Federal Reserve note, making everybody beholden to the Federal Reserve Bank, the United States Treasury, and making the Federal Reserve note a world currency, if you will. I think those tides are shifting. They got rid of Gaddafi because Gaddafi was communicating with Russia, and they were getting ready to create gold dinars, which would have replaced the petrodollar. And their plan was to make it so you couldn't buy barrels of oil without gold. Well, they may have gotten rid of Gaddafi, but they didn't get rid of the idea, because China, Russia, and a number of other countries are now looking at the possibility of doing that. And in recent times, Saudi Arabia has just cut ties with the United States dollar, otherwise identified as the Federal Reserve note, for selling their barrels of oil, which means ultimately that the Federal Reserve note will collapse. Internally in the United States, it may still have minute value for some time, but ultimately, without the rest of the world using it, it has become worthless. Okay, so very soon, and I'm just hypotheticating here. Very soon in the near future, you will see $100 bills rolling down the street, and nobody will even bother to pick them up because they won't be worth anything. Just like when the economy in Venezuela collapsed, people had trillions, billions of inflated paper, frivolous paper with ink, rolling down the street. Nobody even wanted. You can't wipe your ass with it because it'll irritate you. It's like wiping your ass with sandpaper. You can't light it on fire because goat turds honestly burn hotter and provide more energy. So why would you waste your time trying to burn it, right? It's a denim product. And so what did they do? They just started throwing it out in the streets to the tunes of trillions of dollars. And I say trillions because that was the hyperinflation they went through. They were printing out bills that were astronomical numbers on them, but in reality, they had no value. Okay. So that brings us up to today. What I'm going to share with you is out of Corpus Juris Secundum, Volume 9, subsection 272, Banks and Banking. And this goes along with what I was telling you guys about. If you watch the other 8 or 9 videos I did on negotiable instruments, this ties into banking accounts. The difference between a special deposit and a general deposit. Okay. And when you go to a bank, so often, because of what we're accustomed to, we go to a bank and we say, oh, we'd like to open a checking account. They're more than happy to do that for you. Because when you open a checking account, it's an interest-bearing account, and they have control over that. Okay? That's brought you into the world of commerce. But if you want to stay on the private side, ladies and gentlemen, you need a non-interest-bearing deposit account. That's it. A non-interest-bearing deposit account. And you want to open that with a W8BEN. Okay? And the reason for that is to keep you out of the commercial side and keep you in the private. So it doesn't mean that you can't still have a checking account somewhere else, but your deposit account you forever want to remain a deposit account and nothing more. So, Corpus Juris Secundum, Volume 9, subsection 272, Banks and Banking. Subsection 272, particular kinds of deposits. Bank deposits may be classified broadly as general and special. Okay, you got your general deposits, which get commingled with everything else, the investments of the bank and everybody else that is a depositor. Then you have a special deposit. And a special deposit is unique to you. It stays in there. They are the trustees, the safekeeper of that special deposit, and they must return exactly what you deposited. Okay? The primary division of deposits is into general and special deposits, or those in which title passes to the bank and those in which title remains in the depositor. The same deposit cannot be both a general and a special deposit. It has also been said that 3 classes of deposits are recognized by law: general, special, and deposits for a specific purpose. The last named class is frequently included under the head of special deposit. Call and time deposits. A call deposit in banking circles is a deposit subject to a call at the pleasure of the depositor, and is distinguished from a time deposit, which is a deposit for a specified time. 273, Corpus Juris Secundum, Volume 9. General deposit. A general deposit is one to the general credit of the depositor, wherein title to the money passes to the bank and it becomes the debtor of the depositor with the obligation to repay such money in current funds on the depositor's order or demand. A general deposit, which is the ordinary form, is the payment of money into the bank to be repaid on demand, in whole or in part, as called for in any current money, and has been defined as a deposit generally to the credit of the depositor to be drawn upon by him in the usual course of banking business. Ordinarily, a general deposit consists of money which is mingled with other money of a bank, the entire amount forming a single fund from depositors are paid. The relation between a bank and a general depositor therein is that of debtor and creditor, and not that of agent and principal, nor that of bailee and bailor, nor that of trustee and beneficiary. I knew I missed one. Make sure I didn't miss another one. All right. Depositor, or on his order 40 or demand 41, and in making payments on the depositor's order, the bank pays its own money as a depositor, as a debtor, and not its depositor's money as an agent. The bank's contract is to honor the checks of its depositors so long as it has sufficient funds to do so, and its obligation is merely to repay the amount due out of its general funds, and it is not contemplated that the identical bills or money deposited shall be returned to the customer, nor does the bank incur any obligation to the depositor to preserve his funds, nor to invest them, nor to keep them separate from its other funds. Deposits are ordinarily presumed to be general, and the burden of proof rises. They fucked up the clerical error there. On one asserting the contrary, infra, subsection 327A. The factors considered in determining the general or special character of particular deposits are discussed in subsection 274B infra. Distinguished from special deposit, the fundamental difference between a general and a special deposit is that title to the thing deposited generally passes to the bank, and its obligation is merely a return and an equivalent of the money deposited, whereas title to the things specially deposited remains in the depositor, and the bank is ordinarily obligated to return the particular thing deposited. Although other authority states that there is no obligation to return the identical money deposited, whether the deposit is general or special, but that the difference between the two kinds of deposits lies in the fact that a general deposit becomes a part of the bank's general assets, which may be used in its business, whereas a special deposit is money which the bank is not authorized to use in its general banking operations, but which the bank must at all times keep protected by having on hand cash in a sum equal to such deposit. Other differences are that special deposits include those wherein the bank becomes a trustee for a depositor by special agreement or under circumstances sufficient to create a trust, whereas general deposits are those wherein the bank becomes merely the debtor of the depositor, and that a general deposit vests the property in the bank for all purposes, whereas a special deposit is limited for specific purposes. It has been said that a special deposit is one based on the express or implied agreement that it is made for some particular purpose, while a general deposit includes all other forms of deposit. Change in character of deposit. In general, a special deposit may be defined broadly as a delivery of money or other property to a bank for safekeeping and return in kind. In kind, not like kind. If I borrow your cat to go to the party and it's a black and white cat, and I bring you back a yellow and white cat, and I say, well, here's your cat back, you're gonna go, no, that's like kind. I want my fucking cat back. I want in kind back. Okay? Title to the thing deposited remains in the depositor, and the bank becomes his agent, bailee, or trustee. Banks are authorized to receive special as well as general deposits, and when they do so, are obligated to carry out the terms thereof and are liable for any breach of duty in this respect, as shown infra subsection 292. A special deposit is a delivery of property, securities, or even money to the bank for the purpose of having the same safely kept and the identical thing deposited returned to the depositor, or one for some specific purpose, such as deposits discussed in subsection 275. Infra, not contemplating a credit on general accounts and particular, and may also be defined as one held for a purpose in identical or equivalent form as lien deposited, subject to return at any time and not commingled by the depository with other funds or assets of the bank. A special deposit becomes such by specific direction or agreement, or through circumstances sufficient to create a trust, or through wrongful deposit, and rests upon a contract express or implied. The depositor's consent is ordinarily essential to creation of a special deposit. There is no debtor and creditor relationship between the bank in which special deposit is made and its special depositor, their status or relation being that of agent and principal, bailee and bailor, or trustee and cestacea trust. Trustee and cestacea trust. or a combination of such relationship. Title to the thing deposited does not pass to the bank, but remains in the depositor, the latter retaining the right of control and disposition, and it is ordinarily contemplated that the bank will preserve the identity of the thing deposited by segregation thereof from other kinds of money or property, and that the bank shall have no authority to use in its business money placed with it on special deposit. But it has been held that a deposit of money may still be regarded as special, even though the funds have been mingled with other funds of the bank, so that it is no longer possible to identify the particular bills or coins deposited, as were a sum equivalent to the deposit is to be kept intact for the use of the depositor, and that where money is made the subject of pledge, trust, or special deposit, the identity of a particular money delivered need not be preserved in specie, as by setting it aside in a marked bag or package. B. Determination of character of deposit. In the final analysis, the character of a deposit, as general or special, is a question of fact to be determined by the intention of the parties, as revealed by their agreement and all the circumstances of the particular cases involved. The general or special character of an account is a question of fact to be determined by the purpose for which the deposit was made. The relationship existing between the depositor and the bank, and the intention of the parties as expressed in their contract and as revealed by the facts and circumstances of the case, such as the words and acts of the parties and their course of business. It has been said that a deposit is not special unless made so by the depositor or unless made in a particular capacity. In the notes below will be found references to particular cases wherein deposits were held to be general or where deposits were held to be special. Tender the circumstances involved where the parties have agreed that a deposit shall be general, it will be so regarded by the courts, provided the deposit meets the requirements essential to the classification of general. Pursuant to principles discussed supra in subsection 273 and subdivision of A of the section, factors that may be considered in determining whether a deposit is general or special include the bank's right to control the funds or to mingle the deposits with his own money, whether the identical thing deposited was to be returned, the status of title as being in bank or depositor, whether the parties contemplated the regular course of banking, and the presence or absence of a trust relationship between bank and depositor. A deposit made by the customer with the intention that it be general, but received by the bank with the undisclosed intent that it be special and kept separate from its general funds, is a general and not a special deposit. The fact that a deposit is marked special or bears some other particular designation is not controlling, nor is the lack of such a designation conclusive. And where the deposit is made without any limitations, restrictions, or qualifications, and in the usual course of business subject to be drawn out by the depositor on demand, it is general in character. An account subject to check is ordinarily regarded as a general deposit. Although the single fact that funds were placed in a checking account is not conclusive of their character as a general deposit, deposits may, of course, be general although not carried in a checking account. Crediting of interest on a deposit is an indication that it is general in character. Although this factor is not necessarily controlling, the fact that a deposit draws interest and also is subject to withdrawal does not make it a special deposit. Accepting goods for storage. Allowing a stock of shoes in which a bank has no interest to be stored in the back end of the bank is not a transaction coming within the general line of banking business and is not within the general scope and meaning of the term special deposit. Change in character of deposit. The general or special character of a deposit may be changed by mutual agreement of the parties, but not by unilateral action. By agreement between the parties, a general deposit may be converted into a special deposit, or a deposit special when made may become general in character. To change a general deposit into one of a special character requires a contract, and the fund, at the least in general contemplation, must be withdrawn from the general deposit and redeposited with and accepted by the bank under a new arrangement. If a deposit is made as special, the bank cannot change its character by carrying the account on its books as a general one, as by wrongfully placing it to the depositor credit, as by wrongfully placing it to the depositor's credit in a general checking account, nor will deposits of a personal item in a fiduciary account change the special character of the latter, nor will the bank's conversion of a special deposit transmute it into a general deposit. A bank's issuance to its depositor of cashier's checks to the extent of this deposit does not change their relationship of debtor and creditor, nor make the transaction a special deposit. Where money deposited in a bank is conclusively expressed with a trust, no change can be made in the status of the trust fund without the depositor's consent. A trustee unauthorized diversion of funds in a special deposit will not alter its character, nor will the special character of a deposit be changed by any of other factors which fail clearly to show the intention of the parties to treat the deposit as general. To change a general deposit into one of a special character, there must be some act, at least on the part of the depositor, tending to segregate the funds in the bank's possession and to segregate them for a particular purpose. Subsection 275. Deposits for special purposes. In general, deposits as impressed with trust. In general, a delivery of money or property to a bank for application to a particular specific purpose is not a general deposit, nor is it, strictly speaking, a special deposit, as that term is usually employed, but ordinarily it partakes of the nature of a special deposit in that title to the thing remains in the depositor and the bank becomes an agent, bailee, or trustee and not a debtor. It is not ultra vires for a bank to receive and hold money to be applied to a specific purpose. When we come back, we're going to rip into these sections. Show you how we do some research around this joint. So everywhere you see a sentence, or maybe it's not a complete sentence, and then you're going to see where it says number 27 right here. And we come down here and we find number 27 and we locate exactly what citation they're pulling it out of, what case they're pulling it out of. Now, in this book, there are so many gems littered within here of conclusions of law, findings by the courts, rulings by the courts. And I'm here to tell you right now, Corpus Juris Secundum, Volume 9, Sections 272 through, 274. Oh, don't tell me I had those pages all backwards, and that's why I was... No, okay. 272 through 274 are littered with gold for you, ladies and gentlemen. All right. The depositor has a property right in the information contained therein, and the bank is under an implied duty to keep such records from scrutiny unless compelled by a court of competent jurisdiction. Well, what's a court of competent jurisdiction, ladies and gentlemen? Do otherwise. All right. Duty as respect third person, banks are under no legal duty to warn investing public as to financial conditions of their depositors. Whew, that's fire right there. You know what that means? That means if you go to do business with one other bank, they can't contact the other bank and tell you what your affairs are like with the other bank. So let's say you're banking at Wells Fargo and now you've decided to go to U.S. Bank and you've had some trouble with Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo and U.S. Bank aren't allowed to communicate about your transactions and your business with Wells Fargo or vice versa. All right. That right there is powerful, guys. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to start ripping through all these. And I'll highlight them green and yellow and blue and different colors to point out different aspects. And we'll hit all the highlights. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for all your support, love, care. Really appreciate you guys. And we'll talk to you soon.